And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of episode number 3 of the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. I'm your founder and host, Scott McCarthy, and I'd like to say thanks for coming out and having another listen to me today. Hopefully, I got a interesting show lined up for you today. Before I kick off into today's topic, which is going to be professional development, I just wanted to give you a few updates on what's going on. So first off, happy to say that I'm finally up on Twitter with the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. So you can check me out at MFL, as in Mike Foxtrot Lima _ podcast, and that MFL stands for, of course, Moving Forward Leadership. Yep, we're up on Twitter now, so feel free to follow me. I give updates on when I'm planning on recording another podcast. Actually, just literally shot out a picture tweet about 2 minutes ago as I was prepping for tonight. As well, feel free to follow me and shoot messages if you have any questions or any ideas, so on and so forth. Another update, I'm actually currently traveling, actually on course for work. And that, I guess, is the inspiration for today's podcast. So I'm away from home. I said, might as well take advantage of the time being home alone or away from home and alone, and decide to record the next podcast. So I just wanted to touch base and give you some ideas of the thoughts behind tonight's podcast, and that's professional development and how you always want to grow and become a better person and a better leader and so on. And I kind of wish I could go back to my college days because, ironically enough, I kind of had a motto of D for the degree, and I wish I could just go back in time and just strangle myself, really, because it was a complete wrong attitude to have. And I guess you just live and learn, right? So the biggest takeaway is that it's important to never stop learning, and that's going to be a theme that I'll talk about later down the road. So let's just talk about professional development in general. What is professional development? And that's basically anything that makes you better at anything at all. Some people think that professional development has to be formal courses, designations, and we'll get into those things later. But ultimately, it could be anything. It's just something that makes you learn and makes you better equipped to handle your job. Now, when you're a leader, you're not just thinking of yourself when it comes to professional development. No, you got people. You have people that you take care of on a day-to-day basis. And professional development is probably one of the most important ways that you can take care of your people. So when you think of professional development, you have to think about your subordinates. And that's absolutely critical because you, as much as you want to develop and become more better, they need to get better at their jobs as well. So this is why it's absolutely critical in that you need to raise your people up, bring them up to the next level with you. And through professional development, that is how you're going to achieve that. So there's two different types of professional development out there that you can tap into for your subordinates. And of course, the biggest, most obvious one is courses, whether that's university courses or online training courses or any types of courses. Formal training is an absolute great foundation for people to go out there and learn. The biggest disadvantage that you're going to have with formal training is the cost associated to that, and whether or not your organization is going to absorb that cost, like some organizations do absorb, or if you put the onus on the member themselves to absorb that cost, that's going to be a huge burden and distractor, and maybe even keep people away from doing these online training or these formal training sessions. So you have to keep that back in your mind. As well, there's also the time component. Going out and doing a master's, such as I did. I went and did my master's on my own time. That took me 3 years, 3 school years to complete. It was a huge undertaking, but I did do it on my own time. I did have the time to personally do it. Most importantly, I did have the drive to do it. So just keep that in your mind. Time and money is going to be a massive factor whether or not someone is going to be willing to go ahead and take formal training or not. So how do you get away from formal training but yet still develop your people? Well, there's still other different types of ways to develop your people. You can give them assignments, and what I mean by assignment is to actually send them to a different organization or a different section and allow them to work there temporarily for a shortened period of time. And that will give them new experiences, open up their eyes to a different way of doing things, and so on and so forth. This is great because, again, it's basically cost neutral if it's within your organization, but at the same time, you're going to lose your person for a period of time. So you have to weigh and balance that and try to figure out when the best time is for your organization for that person to go away and go on assignment elsewhere. Also, keep in mind that there's a certain amount of time that someone has to go on assignment for before they actually get a real benefit out of it, because there's going to be a training period of them learning that new job. So you got to keep in mind and balance that between how long they're going to be gone away for, how much they're going to learn, how long can you afford them to be gone away for. It's all a matter of judgment, really. The next way that you can develop your people professionally is through the work that you actually give them. If you have a low priority or a low risk task that you take on generally on a day-to-day basis or whenever, maybe you can develop your people professionally by actually giving that job or task to them so that they can go ahead and get that experience. This is absolutely awesome. I try to employ this as much as possible personally. Kind of falls in line with delegation, which I'll get into next, but giving them this type of work or jobs allows them to see what it's like to be at the next level, force them to think at that next level, the level that you're at. And then they can live and learn. And especially when it's low risk, they can go ahead and make mistakes. So if a mistake occurs, then with the low risk, you can easily go ahead, fix the mistake, and carry on. Allow this to be a lesson learned for that person. And then finally, the last method for developing your subordinates is through delegation. Delegation, I've touched on it in previous podcasts, and I'll continue down the road throughout this whole series, really, in that you develop your people professionally, but through delegation, by putting them into that role, that next level role of which you're at. So they have to, much like work, get into the routine of how you operate. But in delegation, is more formal in that they actually have certain authorities which generally are supposed to reside in you, or certain responsibilities that generally reside with you. But they have absolutely a more active role place. You just handing a single task or two down to them. And that's the critical thing, is that they actually absorb certain responsibilities and authorities and roles. Whereas doing work or a task for you is just simply that, just taking on that one thing. So delegation is absolutely critical. It completely develops your people, and it will allow you to determine whether or not they're actually able and ready and willing to come up and be that next level up where you expect them to be or where you are at. So I've talked about the subordinates quickly, but how about yourself? You, as much as your subordinates, need to continually develop your professional development. But why? Why is it so critical for you to continually learn? And I basically boil down to this. The day you stop learning is the day you stop being useful to your organization. The world is constantly changing. We see that, especially today with technology and how the technological revolution is absolutely changing the world at a pace that even the best people are having a hard time keeping up with. You see companies all the time that are currently going under, and it's absolutely incredible. So you need, as a leader, to be on top of everything and keep learning so that your organization doesn't become the next company that goes under because they got comfortable where they're at, and they stopped the learning culture. They just try to coast, keep the status quo, and carry it on. So there's a few different ways in which you can develop yourself as well. And the first way, much like your subordinates, is through formal professional development. So I already touched on courses such as doing your master's. Exact same thing applied. Now keep in mind that it's going to be a bit more difficult for you to complete these courses if you are supervising / leading a section of people than if you're just a subordinate with no subordinates underneath you. So keep that in mind. You have to balance when it's the right time for you to go ahead and do these courses. Another way, as formal as courses, but not so in depth as doing a master's, or a PhD, or even a university degree for that matter, is through designations. And designations, professional designations, are great. They do take a lot of work, much like doing your master's and so on. However, the workload is generally a little bit less. And these designations, great asset to have on your resume should you decide that you want to move on and move forward. So, for example, for myself, I do have plans down the road to get one of these designations. I'm currently thinking about a PMP, a professional project manager professional designation. However, I haven't really set my goals or haven't set completely on that one yet. Another way that you can go through professional development is through informal means, and I do a lot of this. So the first of it is reading. Simply reading, going out there and finding books and continue reading on various different types of subjects which are of interest to you, but also applicable to what you do for day-to-day work or your organization. So I'm constantly reading on leadership, I am constantly reading on different group dynamics and so on, because I believe that these will come back and enable me to work better, more effectively as a leader down the road. Next type of professional development, believe it or not, you're doing it right now, and that's listening to podcasts informal professional development through podcasts. Great tools. So many podcasts out there on every topic that you could ever imagine. So these things, a lot of the great ones, I'm a huge fan of the Benfield Greenfield fitness podcast, for example, continually brings in some world-leading experts on health and fitness, and I am continuing learning. So I'm developing myself professionally in that field, although I don't really use it for work. It's more personal, but still, it's an avenue in which I can develop myself, develop my knowledge, open my eyes, and allow me to see things, new things, learn new things, and apply them if I should choose to do so. And then the final informal method of professional development is through experience, such as volunteering for things. Now, you can volunteer for tasks internally. So much like how I talked about you giving work to your subordinates, you can go to your superior or your boss and say, hey, I would like to take on a different task, a task that's at your level, so that I can learn from it and ask to be guided through it and be mentored through it. And that's another way of being developed professionally. Or you can go outside your organization and volunteer with various nonprofit organizations, various boards of governors, and so on, and grab experience outside of your organization. See other organizations, work with them, and see how they operate, and in turn, that will help you develop and help you bring these experiences back. So in the end, you and your organization win. Basically, that is pretty well it in a nutshell in professional development, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's very quick and dirty, but basically that's how I like to keep things for you, because I don't want to keep up too much of your time. So let's just recap. Professional development is absolutely critical. You need to keep moving, keep learning. Why? Because like I said, the day that you and your subordinates stop learning, you stop being useful for your organization. And if that's anything you can learn today, whenever you're listening to this, is absolutely that. Never stop learning. So keep in mind of the different types of professional development out there, from formal means to informal means, and keep challenging yourself and your people to keep moving forward. Before we wrap up this podcast, I got a few questions that got emailed into me regarding the first two podcasts. So I'm going to take a moment and read these over and provide some answers to them. So question 1 comes from Hugo regarding podcast number 2, and he's asking, when having to remove someone ineffective in a crisis situation, how is the best way to do this? Well, Hugo, the best way to do this is privately. Always do things critical private, and always praise public is basically a good rule of thumb. So if you're having someone who's completely ineffective during a crisis situation, take them aside, away from everybody else. Let them know that they're not on their game with this situation. Remove them from being in charge or whatever, and tell them when they can come back and see you, and when you can have a debrief session with them to allow them what was going on, what was going wrong with them, what your issues with them was, and then allow them the chance to earn back your trust or get back into work and get their confidence back. So always, always, always privately. Question number 2 from Elaine regarding podcast number 1. She asks, how is it best to explain why in the terms of presence? So Elaine, you always want to explain why you expect people to do something, or so on and so forth. Face to face is the best way to do it. Absolutely face to face. It's absolutely critical because that allows you to have the direct connection with the person or people that you're explaining it to. As well, gives them a better chance to feel more comfortable in asking questions, so on and so forth. If you can't do it face to face, video conferencing is always great. Over the phone would be the next best solution. At all costs, try to avoid it through email, text, and so on, because those forms of communication are so non reaching. You don't connect with the person as much at all, so keep that in mind. And then finally, question number 3 for today comes from Matt, and he's got a question on podcast number 2, and he's asking me if I could explain the after action review a bit more, which is a great question, Matt. So the after action review is basically where you look at all the different lessons, issues that you had arise from a situation, and then analyze why those things occurred. And then what you want to do is not look at people, but look at the process or look at your resources to see if those are to blame. When you find out that the process is wrong or the resources that you have are inadequate or wrong, then you go ahead and use these lessons, these issues, and turn them into lessons learned. As in, what can we do better or differently, or what can we add into the organization to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And then you develop that and you bring it into your day-to-day routine, part of your processes, and so on and so forth, so that it actually becomes a lesson learned. And then the final step is to inform all your people of these changes, so that when the next time a crisis of this nature occurs, you can deal with it more effectively. So I hope that answers all of your questions, and thanks out there to Hugo, Elaine, and Matt for asking those questions. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a great day out there. Hope you're enjoying this podcast. Please feel free to connect with me. Go to the movingforwardleadership.com website, or you can connect with me on Twitter now. And please feel free to provide your inputs, suggestions on future podcast topics, or anything at all. I hope you're having a great day. And remember, keep moving forward, keep learning, and of course, keep getting better. Thanks. Have a great day.